Right, welcome to the Talking D&D podcast. Today I'm joined by Lucas. How are you doing, Lucas?
We're doing very well, and you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm excellent. I'm excited to talk to another player. So I guess we start off by, I want to know where you are in the D&D space. Are you a player, a DM, or anything else?
So, in D&D space and TTRPG overall, I am DM for almost 2 decades now.
Wow.
D&D itself, we do play for about roughly 2 years. Before we did use kind of old Czech version of it, so different system, but still high fantasy.
What do you mean by an old Czech system?
It was called, actually, if I would translate it, it would be Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Yeah.
But at the end of the 80s, at the start of the 90s, there was one company that tried to make their own system loosely based on Dungeons and Dragons, with less customization. It was D6 system with, if you were doing some contests or traps or whatever, you would use 10-sided dice. So
Yeah.
it was simple in these terms.
But not as good?
System was good. It's actually pretty great. They kind of killed it because halfway through in the 90s, the company stopped really developing it. And then when the whole country opened more to the Western systems and all this, it just didn't have the competition availability. And there was less customization. If you would be, for example, wizards, you would have 2 subclasses, and you would not be able to multi-class or anything like that. And whilst the progression on one class was pretty deeper, pretty much, they kind of just have it the same way as it was at the start of the 90s, and they didn't go with what was the need of the players.
Well, you've played a hell of a lot longer than I have, so you can teach me all sorts, because I'm not that familiar with older modules. I did play the Red Box in the 80s at school, but not so that I remember it, not so that I was passionate, So the gap in between, like the 80s and basically 2018, when I rediscovered it, what was D&D, what was the feeling? Because it disappeared to me.
I'll be honest, I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons per se, the original series, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and all this. What I do know of is from the old PC games, that the system was more complicated. And to be honest, for me, it was kind of daunting and a little bit frightening, because where we are coming from, easier system, rules-wise and everything. And you look at it and you see, this I'm going to have to count, and this I'm going to need to track and all this. So we kind of did stick with that. And what gets me to Dungeons and Dragons of 5th edition was kind of Critical Role. Kind of that my friends, some of them did play it already. So I was able to get into situation. If I would not really understand some kind of ruling or anything, I would have help from somebody else. And I would suggest that for every starting DM, if you can have that friend that's going to be there with you, either as a player or co-DM, that's going to help you out with your starts before you get comfortable with the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's much better, I think, to get, like you say, you join an actual game in real life, rather than sitting, reading the entire books or watching online. It's better just to play, isn't it? Because you don't need 1,000 rules. You might need 5 rules.
Obviously. If you look at the Player's Handbook of 2014, it's 300 pages, a little bit more. And of that, you need, let's say, 20% really. Everything else is the classes, is the stuff around what you can do outside of a combat and all that. We don't really need that, because unless you're playing, either you are playing homebrew and you control every aspect of the world, or you are playing prepared module, and at the time you already have everything prepared. So you don't really have to have it. From my point of view and as my style, don't really just stick to every single rule. Sometimes, just for the players, they come up with some interesting ideas. We do have the fighters still, but there was a combat encounter, and the guys prepare a trap. The trap did become useless because the way everybody positions it was not working. But the guy used the trap itself to catapult himself onto the beholder.
Yeah.
So he landed on it, and whilst you would according to rules should not really do this, but it just makes such a wonderful scene, and I do want to encourage players to have creative solutions to situations. So it's
the rules are pointless in a sense, aren't they?
It does make it looks. They do give you the base frame, and obviously there are certain rules that's why change them. You need to know how to sort out your combat encounters, which the rules will tell you how to score the hits. They will tell you if you are going to survive or not, and on that you can just build up.
So do you have like favorite spells or feats for yourself that you always pick?
I'm not playing as a player that much often, so at the time when I do get the chance, I really don't know what I want to play. There are favorite ones, yes. For the heavy weapon master, that's for sure. If you want to play fighter, it's going to give you better chance of landing your hits. Well, not hits per se, but more damage. You sacrifice a chance to hit to have more reliable and larger hits. It's always a trade-off. What I do really like is the Magic Initiate.
Yeah.
Because if you look, for example, and we're going to go back again to a fighter. Fighters do suffer from the whole thing that they are combat oriented, and that's just a tiny part of the game. Otherwise, they do not have much else to do, especially if you will choose subclass like champion. Magic Initiates can actually give you something to do outside of the combat, because you can take few spells from some other casting class, that you can use outside of the combat. You can detect magic, or you can get a ritual caster feat, and this way you can suddenly start to do other things. Or I can just have a familiar. I can summon something that will help the party. So and what I would say, to people, especially the guys that do start up, don't always just look at the internet. What's the best build? Try what works for you. It's always about the dungeon master and the player communication. Yes, I tried this. It's not working for me. Can we change it? Yes, most of the time it is possible.
Are you up to date with the 1D&D weapon mastery system that they're trying to experiment with?
Just read it yesterday. I did look at the video made by the Wizards of the Coast. I like it. I like it quite a lot, because at the moment, a lot of weapons do feel like one and the same. And if you can go with one-handed swords, or you can take two-handed swords, which is going to have much more damage, you're going to take it. And there's lots of them that feel like just one, and it's just the difference there is the die that you roll. This system with the masteries is going to give you much more versatility with it, and you can build your character, especially with the fighters that will be able to choose more masteries for one weapon. And you can have longsword. With the longswords, you can have a topple. You can have some other things. So you hit your enemy, and you do decide: am I going to get the guy prone, or am I going to push him away? So this way you can have the sword and board again, for example. At the moment, in 5th edition, sword and board style is kind of not favored that much.
I'm looking forward to the day that they have homebrew weapons where the character can say, I want a sword, but I want it to have 2 daggers on either side. But I don't know how you would deal with that. But it seems that Wizards of the Coast in particular want to simplify things rather than customize.
Yeah, if I would if I would compare it to a cinematic universe, it's like Marvel. where older style Dungeons and Dragons was more inclined towards the DC comics, and Marvel is more user friendly. Let's say it's simplified, it's more streamlined. You can spend 1 hour reading something and you can play, which helps. Or on the other hand, it suffers a little bit your customization options that you can have. How would I deal with the sword, as you said? Depends. Can I detach the daggers or can I not? You can have, I would say, a special property to it. If you land, let's say, a critical hit, I would allow the dagger damage to be applied, for example, if you cannot detach it. If you can detach it, let's say you can, as a bonus, you would be able to, as a bonus action, just take the dagger and throw it onto an enemy.
Would you allow me to put like a magic ring of frost inside a normal greatsword and say that it deals some sort of magical effect?
Why not? Look, it's always about a little bit of a balance, a little bit of a flair. If I know that that you're going to be really enthusiastic about it, and if I will know that you do have this property on the swords, I can prepare the encounters to cater to this.
How do you approach NPCs then? Do you have maybe voices? How do you make them stand apart?
To have voices, sometimes I'm not that good at it, but for example, recently we did have dwarf that did kind of offered quests to players, and I did put up like 4 or 5 different voices to the guy, which was there as a hook for the players to kind of recognize that it's not just a basic dwarf. It was a completely different entity, and plus you can have names, you can have some quirks. You know, they can just be really mad, talking to themselves. Oh, hello, I'm here for you. No, we're not going to be talking to them, guys. And so it just don't be afraid. That's I would say. Don't be afraid. And it may happen that actually players are going to like it. Happened a few times. Most of the times, the best experiences come from unexpected things.
You're absolutely right. I think the table that you play with is normally a safe space, and I think you should allow yourself to do silly voices. They're normally the most fun.
But it's not really necessary if somebody doesn't feel comfortable about it yet. You don't have to. Also, it's going to make it sometimes a little bit harder to push across the personality of your NPC to the players. And another thing of this, it's kind of really good benefit. If the players do see that you do the voices, they may be beginners, and they see that Dungeon Master is comfortable with it, they actually may try to do something themselves.
That's true. Do you use minis or theatre of mind or online?
I would say combination of both. There are encounters and situations where theater of the mind is just going to give you better chance to explain the scene, and it's faster to set up because you don't have to set up anything. You just really describe to your players what's around them, and you wait for their solutions. Plus, at the moment, it's because most of my players are mainland Europe. We do play over the internet. We do not have much chance to use the minis. Then it's just sometimes I don't want to get into to have maps and everything too much of a showcase, because after all, it is about imagination most of the game. And if the player really sees something is like this, you can show them tokens, you can show them how the map look like, and their imagination suffers.
What else do you play?
Other than D&D, at the moment, not much. I do have the players that do really want to play the D&D, and other systems. We do have some games like Descent and all this, but that really requires you to have in-person games, and guys would have to learn new systems as well. I do have rules for 5th edition Cyberpunk. Plus, I was looking at the Pathfinder and Starfinder. One of my players would like to try Star Wars system, which is really old, and most of the people don't even know that Wizards of the Coast did make the system a long time ago. But did not become as popular as Dungeons and Dragons. So at the moment, it is just Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, no, fair play. How often do you play? Weekly?
Used to play weekly. When I did progress a little bit at my job, we do play every odd week now, because I do work 1 weekend in, 1 weekend off. And yeah, at the moment, most of the other players are a little bit still a little bit afraid to take the DM seat.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, isn't it?
Yes. Depends how much you want to prepare. It is completely possible to wing everything on the spot.
Yeah.
But you can hear it, you can see it, and you're not going to get that much of an immersion, and you're not going to remember a lot of things. I'd say if you're going to be running session for 4 hours, prepare for four and a half hours in front. If you will be preparing like 20 hours, it's great, but you're going to be over prepared. Yeah. And then it's becoming another job again for you, and unless you're paid DM, it's not, well, you're going to get burned out. What
is your opinion on paid DMs?
I think the market is in there, and yes, I support the idea. I do support the idea, because this way the guy can have everything prepared. You can, if you are paid DM, you get the money, and unless you are doing it like really for a living, you just get few pounds, few dollars, wherever the paying people are, and you can buy the books, because we all know, and it's always something that you can buy for Dungeons and Dragons. You can invest it back into the game, and this actually is one of the reasons, because most of the people that do buy the books are not the players.
Mm-hmm.
These are the DMs. And if the DM has the books, the Wizards of the Coast will get the money, and they will keep the game running. So right. Yeah, I do support the idea.
Lucas, if I invited you to a game where you had to pay to play, would you go?
Yes.
Interesting. That's fair enough. So Kickstarters, do you keep your eye on like extra material, by other places?
I do. There are some guys like Ghostfire Gaming, that do prepare lots of good stuff, and they do most of it through Kickstarters. Guys like Dungeon Dudes as well. Lots of map generators. They do come out of the Kickstarters. It's not as bad situation with Kickstarters for TTRPGs as for the games. Most of the time, you would try to support the game. You're not going to get till the end with the product. Lots of it is a bit scammy, but when it comes to TTRPGs, it usually goes through. You're going to get something out of it. So yeah, it depends on how much these guys do really want. And I have to say, those Kickstarters for TTRPGs usually are on the lower price end, so it's more reasonable to actually invest into it.
Yeah, have you got loads of things that you worry that you won't get to play? Like, do you buy things and then think, I've got too much?
Yeah, tell me about it. I do. And most of this is going to my computer games, where I do pay to one charity site, and you pay them amount of money. Well, it's about £10, and you get some games for it every month, and you support different charities through this. Because of this, I already have 600 games on my Steam account. I'm not going to ever be able to play all of them. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. Lucas, do you have any favourite monsters then?
Yeah, at the moment it really does seems like a bit of a beholders. Plus, I do have one necromancer that has kind of become BBEG for the guys.
All right.
I did not manage to get him yet, and I'm not going to keep them yet. So, I do like to. Because when guys go to different kind of area, I don't want to keep all the monsters all the time the same. And when we did have a paladin in the group, it was just, if I would just keep giving them different monsters, it would kind of feel like I'm targeting the paladin, because they can turn them on, turn them off, and all these things. So yeah, but beholders are kind of like those monsters there where you get the variation. You get undead beholder, which is just going to just float in there a little bit, scare them up. But it's not going to be that much of an issue as some others. Yeah, did a few spiders, some dragons, undeads. tons of undeads.
Yeah.
It's one of those monsters that you can use at any stage of the game, and you're going to get great results with it. Either you can use them as lots of mobs that just have not many hit points, but it's kind of become a problem for the party, or you can have just some more advanced ones, some stronger enemies, leeches. You can have vampires, lots of these.
Yeah, vampires good. So what sort of things do you consume then? Critical Role, podcasts, YouTubers?
Podcasts, lots of podcasts. I do watch the Critical Role, not that much though. It can be daunting to watch for hours at a time, or
it's too long.
Or, you know. So I did like the shorter campaign when they didn't have the Exu Calamity. That was good. Just 20 hours for episodes. It's bearable.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then that D&D Shorts guy is good. Dungeon Dudes, and sometimes Ginny D. Yeah, Ginny D is great, especially for new players, new dungeon masters. DM Lair is good as well. Yeah. So,
good. Excellent. So let's go. Advice for beginners is your last question.
Advice for beginners, dungeon masters players. It's kind of a really wide range question. For the players, let's start with the players. Don't be afraid to make your character your own and communicate with your DM. You want to make, even if a lot of guys, for example, when they want to play rogues, they do tend to gravitate towards the edginess of it. Why not? It's your way how you want to play the player and your character, but speak with your dungeon master and have a reason to cooperate with the party. There is nothing worse than someone who constantly tries to just run away, do their own thing, and instigate. Because it's going to create a little adverse behavior from the other players, and it's going to lead to worse experience overall. Sometimes, yes, do these things. It's not like you cannot do them, but let's just go communicate. Because sometimes, and you may be wizards, we want to cast a spell, some super special spell, you do have the idea of it, but you may end up with dungeon master saying, "Oh, you know what? I don't want this to work like that." If you would communicate up front with the dungeon master, they may say, "Yes, let's prepare the encounter just specially for this guy," and you're going to get a good time. When it comes to role playing, it doesn't really need to be special voices, 20 pages of backstories at the start. Don't have to. Prepare a few sentences. Prepare the way you would like to have the player, and you don't need to overdo it. If over time you will start becoming more happy with doing the voices, more happy with the role playing, just do it one step at a time. Because we all know it can be pretty daunting to do everything straight away. For the dungeon masters, again, communicate with the players. You do want to, if you want to play a serious game and your players don't want to play a serious game, you're going to end up with this weird situation where you prepare some super moral dilemma for them, and they just may say, "I'm going to go somewhere else." And that's another thing. Always be prepared. Your players will do unexpected things. Even the best laid dungeon is going to end up not being used because your players are going to decide, we're going to go to this town instead. You can just save it for another day, scale the monsters if it's going to end up being used later on. But don't be upset if this is going to happen. And don't need to panic if you're going to end up with completely unexpected situation. Tell the players, "Oh, I did not have this prepared. Can we stop this? We can just watch the movies or something, and we're going to rejoin some other time." And don't over prepare, don't under prepare, and don't be afraid. Everything is going to come with the experience.
Yes, well, my friend, thank you very much for
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And if anyone else wants to come on the show, then get in touch with the Facebook channel in the link and direct message me. Thank you, Lukas, once more.
Okay, thank you.